Once long ago there was a creator god and he created all the Poke gods. He was said to be a super powerful being of immense power and was said to possess all the power of all the other Poke gods. He was said to be able to take on any form he wants and appear as human if he so desired. Long ago there used to be Pokemon on the earth, but the original creator god of the Poke gods got so angry that he waged war on the Poke gods and successfully destroyed all the Pokemon on the earth in a massive flood that destroyed all but a select few to repopulate the earth. He had genetically engineered a dumbed-down version of the Pokemon without their special abilities and or powers and gave them a standard 2-strand DNA called a double helix DNA strand, which made them virtually defenseless in battle. In the distant future, at the advent of the 21st century, mankind is about to make a discovery that will forever change their destiny forever. They will genetically engineer new life forms like animals, but with a difference. These are not your ordinary run-of-the-mill animals. These are superior genetically enhanced super animals with superior intellect, which later on will eventually become known worldwide as Pokemon or Pokemonsters. In a parallel world parallel to our own, there exists only Pokemon and Pokehumans, which are supernatural beings of extraordinary power. One day an ordinary human man discovers that there are other worlds just like this one, some that are identical and some that are completely different and far between. At the advent of the 21st century, new humans are born into existence and hold the keys to the future human race's evolution. These would eventually become known worldwide as Pokehumans or Pokemorphs because they possess Pokemon souls which have been incarnated into human form in the world. He discovers that he himself is not merely an ordinary human and indeed possesses Pokemon powers, and he goes on a quest to discover if these other worlds exist and discover if he is not alone and journeys to find people like himself. This will not be easy for him because if at all, people who have this will not be easy to find, because they are in fear of being captured and dissected by doctors and scientists. At the advent of the 21st century, new human beings are born into existence which are more than just being human in the normal sense. These humans are usually abnormally intelligent and are said to possess abnormal abilities like but not limited to elemental abilities and psychic powers and super intelligence not normally found in normal humans, and are said to be able to use more than 50% of their brain power, unlike their normal human counterparts which only use 10% or less brain power. The world of Pokemon. Pokemon and humans live happily together. They help each other out when they are in need and they are good friends. But what of the Pokemorphs? The Pokemorphs are a threat, so says the normal humans, and now all Pokemorphs are a servant to humans. And used as weapons for the military, used for advanced warfare, weapons for secret organizations so as to be weapons of war, and death weapons for secret organizations to make war. Most Pokemorphs don't even make it past their teenage years. They are captured by secret military organizations and studied and dissected so as to see if they can be weaponized for advanced warfare and for strategic weaponry, and are hunted and used for wars and being servants and weapons. But there are some humans who show kindness to the Pokemorphs and love. What will happen if a human and a Pokemorph fall for each other? Or even Pokemorph for Pokemorph? Will they ever live happily ever after? There are some humans and Pokemorphs who want to put a stop to this, and soon a battle will come, the Battle of Armageddon. Will the Pokemorphs be set free? Or will they be hunted to extinction by the secret organizations and all Pokemorphs to be killed? And everything and everyone is supposed to live happily ever after? Wrong. Now the Pokemon gods have rained down on us, and one of the biggest and most powerful churches are not done with the Pokemorphs and still wants them gone. For love, for freedom. The war is about to begin. What side will you be on? The ordinary humans? Or the supernatural humans called Pokemorphs or Pokehumans? In a parallel world parallel to our own, there exists only Pokemon and Pokehumans, which are supernatural beings of extraordinary power. One day an ordinary human man discovers that there are other worlds just like this one, some that are identical and some that are completely different and far between. At the advent of the 21st century, new humans are born into existence and hold the keys to the future human race's evolution. These would eventually become known worldwide as Pokehumans or Pokemorphs because they possess Pokemon souls which have been incarnated into human form in the world. He discovers that he himself is not merely an ordinary human and indeed possesses Pokemon powers, and he goes on a quest to discover if these other worlds exist and discover if he is not alone and journeys to find people like himself. This will not be easy for him because if at all people who have this will not be easy to find, because they are in fear of being captured and dissected by doctors and scientists. At the advent of the 21st century, new human beings are born into existence which are more than just being human in the normal sense. These humans are usually abnormally intelligent and are said to possess abnormal abilities like but not limited to elemental abilities and psychic powers and super intelligence not normally found in normal humans, and are said to be able to use more than 50% of their brain power, unlike their normal human counterparts which only use 10% or less brain power. The world of Pokemon. Pokemon and humans live happily together. They help echo their out when they are in need and they are good friends. But what of the Pokemorphs? The Pokemorphs are a threat, so says the normal humans, and now all Pokemorphs are a servant to humans. And used as weapons for the military, used for advanced warfare, weapons for secret organizations so as to be weapons of war, and death weapons for secret organizations to make war. Most Pokemorphs don't even make it past their teenage years. They are captured by secret military organizations and studied and dissected so as to see if they can be weaponized for advanced warfare and for strategic weaponry, and are hunted and used for wars and being servants and weapons. But there are some humans who show kindness to the Pokemorphs and love. What will happen if a human and a Pokemorph fall for echo there? Or even Pokemorph for Pokemorph? Will they ever live happily ever after? There are some humans and Pokemorphs who want to put a stop to this, and soon a battle will come, the Battle of Armageddon. Will the Pokemorphs be set free? Or will they be hunted to extinction by the secret organizations and all Pokemorphs to be killed? And everything and everyone is supposed to live happily ever after. Wrong. Now the Pokemon gods have rained down on us, and one of the biggest and most powerful churches are not done with the Pokemorphs and still wants them gone. For love, for freedom. The war is about to begin. What side will you be on? The ordinary humans? Or the supernatural humans called Pokemorphs or Pokehumans? Digital gods and human monsters, theorizing the data bodies of post-control. 1. By R. Joshua Scannell. Work in progress, not for circulation. SLSA Talk 10-13 Digital Gods and Human Monsters, Theorizing the Data Bodies of Post-Control. In December 2010, IBM announced a partnership with the city of Rio de Janeiro to build a single city operations center located in a biometrically secured room in a nondescript neighborhood. Initially pitched as a meteorological nerve center committed to more effectively prevent or manage the increasingly regular climatic disasters that befall the city, it quickly grew from coordinating 18 weather prediction and crisis management agencies to a massive digital control center in which 80 interchangeable digital panels project live video feeds from 450 cameras and 3 helicopters, plus a dizzying array of tricked-out Google Maps of schools and hospitals, car accidents with real-time traffic to the nearest hospital, and close to 10,000 GPS-tracked buses and ambulances. There are temperature, wind, humidity, and air quality maps. Heat maps of dengue fever outbreaks. Crisis mode maps of high-risk landslide zones. On one map, graphic simulations predict tomorrow's weather within a 150-mile radius. 30,000 meters of fiber optic cables crisscross another 300 LCD screens spread over 100 rooms in the ops center. 2. 70 heads of city departments are united under the ops center, from civil defense to sanitation to transportation to tourism to education. The center employs dozens of workers 24 hours every day monitoring changing conditions and incoming data feeds, as well as developing or predicted problems categorized by IBM into 4 levels: events, incidents, emergencies, and crises. As the New York Times explains, a loud party, for instance, is an event. People beating up each other at a party is an incident. A party that becomes a riot is an emergency. If someone dies in the riot, it's a crisis. To collect site-specific information, the center uses IBM's proprietary algorithmic software developed to monitor social media like Twitter, as well as its own presence in social media and text. As media proliferates with relevant hashtags and keywords, the center's systems organize the data, sort it for relevancy and combine it with information flowing from other inputs in order to display levels of seriousness and ongoing situational dynamics in real time. Most importantly, this data collation feeds into a meta-analysis that will, in the future, mark certain combinations of input variables and parameters as generating risk. As IBM explicitly says in its promotional materials, it is intended to reformat the infrastructure of urban governance into a centralized, data-driven algorithmic management system. 3. In July 2012, the NYPD announced the unveiling of a state-of-the-art law enforcement technology that aggregates and analyzes existing public safety data in real time to provide a comprehensive view of potential threats and criminal activity. This surveillance apparatus, a joint production of Microsoft and the NYPD, is called Domain Awareness System. In the press release announcing its unveiling, New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg claims that the Domain Awareness System, DAS, capitalizes on powerful policing software that allows police officers and other personnel to more quickly access relevant information gathered from existing cameras, 911 calls, previous crime reports and other existing technology. New York City press release, August 2012. While the mayor's press release makes the program sound mundane, little more than a beefed-up ComStat, the DOS Public Security Privacy Guidelines document gives a different perspective on the program's capacities and aims. Whereas the press release pitches DOS as oriented towards policing strategies, the guidelines articulate, in no uncertain terms, the anti-terrorist basis of the program and, to wit, imply that the benefits accrued to municipal policing of crime are essentially ancillary. As Neil Underlider reported for Fast Company in August. Although NYPD documents indicate that the system is specifically designed for anti-terrorism operations, any incidental data it collects for a legitimate law enforcement or public safety purpose by DOS can be utilized by the police department. The NYPD will also share data and video with third parties not limited to law enforcement if either a subpoena or memorandum of understanding exists. Underlider 2012. This ambiguous purpose becomes more interesting when the guidelines reveal how, deliberately, vaguely privacy is defined. Rather than enclosing municipal practices, agencies, or targets of surveillance within bounded technical limits, the DOS guidelines unspool entire fields of observation and collation before the surveilling apparatus of the Domain Awareness System, DOS. Tellingly, those categories most poorly defined, metadata, environmental data, are also those with the longest legal half-lives in a pre-archival period, 5 years, indefinite. These data streams, which do not obviously have much to do with crime prevention, are those to which the system is most interested in collecting and maintaining long-term access. 5. The program is situated firmly within neoliberal regimes that marry security, crime, and capital in a vast, mutually constitutive profit apparatus. Under the city's agreement with Microsoft, the company is licensed to take the DOS technology and sell it to other municipalities. 30% of the profit from these sales will accrue back to New York City. Far from limiting the program, S. Application to terrorist prevention and crime management. The city envisions the DOS as a profit generator and an alternative to increased taxation. Or, as Mayor Bloomberg articulates it, citizens do not like higher taxes, so we will find other revenue outlets. I hope Microsoft sells a lot of copies of this system, because 30% of the profits will go to us. Fast Company 2012, like Rio's Control Center, DOS, is an almost amoebic law enforcement system, oozing and aligning with wide and unclear fields of management, enforcement, and carcerality to produce securitized geospatial arrangements of power and criminality. This is a futural program of partition that grafts contemporary computer processing power to well-established histories and technologies of population management in order to rework the biophysical archeologies of the city into a metadatalogical terrain. I will refer to this mode of informatic sociality and organization as datalogical governance. 6. Datalogic operates along viral diagrammatics to produce its meta-assemblages. It presumes the viral aesthetics of the banks it trawls, and the viral, scale-agnostic playfulness of its own architectural designs. It is an empirical program of data analysis, but it is a radical empiricism. Clough 2005. A nonlinear, dynamic, indeterminate empiricism whose excesses require an ontological shift in sociological reasoning, rather than an extension of logics of social construction. Big data's form of algorithmic logic complicates the ontological assumption that data and embodiment are differentiated but linked. Rather, through the sorts of generalized, granular digital surveillance and analytics that make the DOS viable, bodily practices themselves instantiate as data, which in turn produces bodily practices. As digital surveillance and urban metrics and statistics become increasingly entangled, modular and specific, the materiality of the human is enveloped into the environment. The DOS, for example, has radiation detection sensors throughout the city that can detect levels of radiation associated with chemotherapy, X-rays, medication, industrial uses, and terrorism. Unger later 2012. The biomedical and biopolitical apparatuses in which one's body is enmeshed is literally fed back into the city's security apparatus. 8. Big data functions precisely because the personal data trails and tracings of any individual subject are always already networked into a sort of dark web of temporally deep and spatially unbounded sets of resonances and patterns. Personal data traces are only valuable as big data insofar as they are enmeshed within diffuse and complex systems with unclear affinities. And it is precisely the proprietary capacity of complex algorithms to make sense of this dark web that renders them monetizable. By making sense of the depth of data, its effective registers and unstable dynamics, the virtual can be captured in logics of measurement, algorithms. Rather than predicting emergence, big data's computational intelligence is predicated precisely on provoking the emergent, hence spokespersons for the DOS perpetually reminding us of the capacity to produce geospatially accurate maps of past and probable future sites of criminal/terrorist activity. In the world of big data, the intermination that is at the root of the socially constructed subject or independent agent is already given over to metrics of prehension, which are also preemptively, virtually, linked into neoliberal chains of capital production and circulation. In his 1992 article, Postscript on the Societies of Control, Gilles Deleuze updates Foucault's disciplinary analysis of society. Control denies the human subject or figure as a useful or ontologically coherent totality. Humans are never outside or beyond particular. 9. Technical and numerical productions, Deleuze 1990. To be human is to be data. Control abhuman orientation reformats the body as a space of measurement, inscription, and expression. It is an always emergent instability, or a horizon of achievement. Control articulates a shifting logic of social organization that moves the terms of contestation from citizenship and exclusion to modulation and preemption. Rather than the sorts of compartmentalization and enclosing of spaces like the favela and the prison that characterize a disciplinary social logic, programs like the Control Center and DOS are a performance of datalogical and algorithmic metrics of security that is not reactive. This governing logic rests on a generalized organizing principle of precurity. The polity is not constructed out of an inside and outside of sovereignty. The polity, which is as much a polity of interest rates as of human beings, itself is a constant dissolving and spectral becoming. Under datalogical governance, there should be no analytic difference between programs geared towards crime and public safety, traffic flows and retail. IBM is depending on the emergent nature of recombinable data not to reflect the city, but to produce it. IBM's model is to produce bodies of data that are mutatable into data bodies, obscuring the distinction between human and non-human, effacing the physical and the immaterial, datalogical and algorithmic into a vortex of emergence and capturability. 11. And positive, rather than representational and negative. The algorithm is the apparatus that organizes and activates the effective necrologies of biopolitical logic. Act 5, Digital Mysticism. The fact that urban data management systems like the DOS tend to be emerging in urban clusters that are characterized by hyper-intensive capital concentration as well as radical inequality, New York, Rio de Janeiro, Shenzhen, is no surprise, and is indeed further indication that neoliberalism Hall 2012, radical violence is fundamental to its regime of capital generation. In a sort of perverse form of primitive accumulation, the dispersion and capitalization of predictive analytic systems like DOS take the material disintegration of conditions of life in regions that are structurally excluded from the circulation of wealth and integrate that very misery into a highly profitable, transnationally circulated commodity market of violence prevention. Those who are made structurally impoverished by violent neoliberal regimes are also, in their alterity, the raw material of datalogical capital. In some twisted science-fictional Lovecraftian nightmare scenario, apparatuses of control that are not anti-human but indifferent to humanity produce what Nigel Thrift has called a new land of digital, data-driven violence that feeds itself and 12. Reproduces on exactly the speculative inequalities that it conjures, consumes, defecates, and then elides through technical metrics. Reflecting on this technical turn in state violence, I.L. Wiseman has argued that the breach of the techno-civilized logic of computations and calculations could thus be argued as madness itself. Wiseman 16. It is this breach, this smoothing capacity, this anti-logic of post-control nested within a digital techniques of hybridizing space, time, bodies, and structures, that I term digital mysticism. Digital mysticism is a philosophical administration of post-biopolitical embodiments and a human governance. There is a governance of modulations and movements and mutations of bodies, but never of bodies themselves. To the extent we can still think necropolitics, it is as a sort of teratological manifestation of venetic techniques of control. With the ascendance of algorithmic logic as diagrammatic, the body is non-isolatable from an entire series of mobile ecologies. We, the human as organism, become ontologically inseparable from data as miasma. The body, then, is diffused as an ontological haunting of data clouds. To push this further, it is useful to turn to Eugene Thacker's attempts to think through the horror of philosophy, what he calls the cosmological mysticism of the world without us, Thacker 2010. The world, he claims, is increasingly unthinkable. The cataclysmic scale of 13. Planetary disasters, emerging pandemics, tectonic shifts, strange weather, oil-drenched seascapes, and the furtive, always looming threat of extinction. is such that we must accept its position as the absolute limit at which we can think the possibility of a world. And it is this attempt to imagine the unthinkable world, the world as a generative void, an ontological beyond, which the horror genre has always sought to produce. To think this world beyond and without us necessitates an attempt to think a life beyond life. Life must be reckoned as a force beyond life forms, a force without organismic privilege. In his Three Quaestio on Demonology, Thacker proposes the demonic as the paradigm in which we have been able to think life without us. Through representations of the demon, we have represented ourselves to ourselves. The demon is always the monstrous, the monstrum, the demonstrable abject and alien body against which we establish a human organism. But so far as the body is concerned, the demons of Dante point us towards a way to rethink the corporeal, the embodied as the site of life. Thacker mentions three organizing demons in Dante. The first, in the final depths of hell, immobilized in the frozen rivers of the underworld, is the sovereign, corporeal demon. The unmoving. 14. Totality, doomed forever to repeat its cycle of transgression and blasphemy. Recalling that the demon is also always the demonstrative, let us think this demon as the sovereign body as unity. Thacker 2010, 32. The second are the Malebranche demons, or demon as multitude. The Malebranche demons travel in packs. Less identifiable sovereign as much as roving groups, the Malebranche demons perform an embodiment that is relational but is still identifiably solid. Set one against another, but always in a group, the bodies of the Malebranche demons inform one another and indeed necessitate one another. There can be no body without another against which it moves. And yet there is still discretion. They are decentralized but always animated by the force of sovereignty. Let's think of this as Deleuzian demons, monstrum of control. Then, finally, there is the life as gale. The wind itself is the demon. In this scene there is neither a fixed and majestic counter-sovereign, nor a roving gang of Faustian demons. There is only the strange, immanent, and fully distributed life force of this black wind. The spirits of the lustful in this circle dissolve into the elemental swarming of the storm and the wind. It is paradoxically the most manifest form of life. Indeed, Dante the character faints before its force, and yet it is also the most empty. The demonic storm is not a discrete thing, much. 15. Less a discrete body, it is everywhere but nowhere. Arguably, this last scene puts forth the most difficult view of the demon. Not a transcendent, governing cause, and not an emanating, radiating flow. But a concept of the demonic that is fully immanent, and yet never fully present. This kind of demon is at once pure force and flow, but, not being a discrete thing in itself, it is also pure nothingness. Thacker 35. This pure force and nothingness, the swirling black wind, is mobilized by neither the sovereign nor the multitude but by the swarm, coursing through the bodies of the damned. If we are looking for an ontological ground from which to think post-biopolitical embodiment, in which dividuation of populations is not human, except incidentally, this black wind is it. The swarming cloud of life force is precisely the ontological embodiment of the ecological data cloud, digital mysticism. As Thacker says, the productive life force of the inferno is not merely teratological, but also geological and climatological. It is this swarming, this effervescent but real cloud of data out of which bodies appear as a haunting. The corporeality of embodiment is never a division that can be articulated. It is always already in alliance with and allured to data. This is not to say that data produces bodies or that bodies emerge out of data, but that bodies are always 16. Already data. There is no ontological distinction between the anorganism of the data body and the pseudo-organism of the human body. They are always already assembled, temporally diffuse, spatially complicated, transient, submerging and re-emerging. In biopolitics the body might be a database, and informatics the search engine, but if the body is a database then it is no longer ever a body. The body is always already dissolved into the data cloud, and the data cloud is always already the body. They are ontologically inseparable. And data logic shows us that the virus, in its ontological indifference to scale, is the coming body of post-control. The virus is pure capacity, pure transmutation and counting. Every virus has its number. The virus is the Lotto-Urian translator par excellence. Virality is the biometric by which we can begin to recalibrate our understandings of the world without us, to take stock of the geomantic symptoms within the metabolism and physiognomy of those who have, under specified conditions, recited its lines. The viral and its swarm render the production and circulation of data and their attendant metrics as life force. Ubiquitous living. Type 0 humans.